The traveller community in Ireland is a diverse and historic group that has played a key role in Irish life for centuries. Their culture is steeped in age-old traditions, with religion and family forming the basis for a tightly knit community. The Truth About Travellers looks at the main aspects of traveller culture, from religion to discrimination to their hopes and dreams. Theirs is quite a complex society. Attitudes towards work and the hopes and ambition of their community are being challenged by modern Irish life. Traveller culture and traditions are facing a tide of change, and tonight I look at how they're adapting to this.
To be honest, it's very hard to find a job. I've done a security course and that, but if they hear the accent and all, they're wondering where you're from. And you tell them a traveller, that's not exactly a good thing.
Travellers have a dependency on social welfare, that they don't want to take a job and give up social welfare because the job is not permanent, but in their mind social welfare is permanent.
The Dáil do it for now, like. Rahal Dáil's put the whole of it.
I can turn my hand to anything. I can put a bottom in buckets, I can solder, I can make anything. But there's one thing I cannot make, and that's money.
We're not all scumbags. Most of us are decent. Some of us are dodgy, but most of us are decent.
You come to tell me something. You say I ought to know.
People say that I sing like Dolly Parton.
You could do any job in the world. What would you like?
I like to be modelling.
You'd like to be a model?
Definitely.
In my time working as a journalist, I have come across travellers on many occasions. They've always struck me as a strong-minded people who take their roots and traditions quite seriously. But they're also some of the most marginalised and secretive sections of society. Travellers lead a separate life to settled people and very much do their own thing. For centuries, the traveller community in Ireland was generally a nomadic culture that travelled from town to town, selling their wares or looking for work as they went. Life was spent on the road.
I was born to traveller, like, on the side of the road, like, and I mean, and my father before me, and like, I mean, I'm not ashamed of it, like, I do mix with every type, like. I was reared in the road, like, until I got married, and I slept in the tent, but the tent was far warmer to sleep in than the caravan.
Really? You prefer the tent?
Oh, I'd sooner the tent. Because you had a big rake of straw, and you put in your blankets, and you light your fire in there, and that's for the wife to do all the cooking and things like that.
From the early days of tinsmiths selling their tin pots and pans, to horse dealers trading at the fairs, to recycling scrap metal and copper, there was always a way of providing for their families.
Begging was a social activity that first and foremost, it was done to feed your family and to feed your children, and that's why travelling people years ago did beg, when they had no other way of supporting and feeding their children. But it was also a social event where women contacted people who were non-travellers, and went to houses, and they became friends. So I think it was very much a part of travellers' culture. I don't see any shame in it.
We used to go from door to door. And at that time, the farmers was very good to us. You could walk in, knock at the door, you'd walk in, and you could go into any house. The farmers fed us, like with the cabbage, the potatoes, and the milk, and the butter.
Travellers were tinsmiths, and that was their main profession. But there were also horse dealers, there were agricultural workers, there were all these different things. There were market traders, there were entertainers. There was a wide range, and travellers were people who could adapt and change and earn a living from whatever was available.
With the evolution of modern society, life for the Irish traveller has changed. Gone are the days of moving from town to town, with communities having to settle down and adapt to a new way of life. The government's recent Anti-Trespass Act has put paid to the days of moving around and setting up home on the side of the road.
Since the trespass law came in, those opportunities are lost. I don't know if it was something like 4 or 5 transient sites in the country, but I mean, that is not enough to cater for I think it's something like 25,000 travellers in Ireland at the moment. So, I mean, you need more transient sites if travellers are going to get the opportunity to, you know, carry on the tradition of nomadism.
Now we have a law of you're not allowed to be on somebody's property, you're not allowed to walk up to somebody's door because you could potentially be shot, and that's completely legal, that's their property. You know, whereas years ago it would have been okay for you to knock on someone's door and say, do you need your tarmac, and I'm done. Now, if you go up to somebody's door, it's just not the thing to do.
I think the biggest change that has taken place for travellers is from becoming a very nomadic people to becoming very sedentary people. And I think that has major ripple effect right through the community. One-time travellers' life centred around being nomadic. Now that's no longer an option for travellers.
I wouldn't like to live in a caravan, I'll be honest, and I wouldn't like to go back to that life again.
With the majority of the old ways of making a living now gone, working within the settled community has become more of a necessity. Unfortunately, that doesn't always come easy.
We done a security course together, and the teacher who was teaching us the course actually told us when he had a job in security, he was told by 90% of them to not let in travellers, and he says, lads, they'll probably even tell you that if you don't copy your traveller.
If they can't accept us for the people that we are, and just because we're travellers, well then, I'm sorry, but...
Why would you want to work for a company that doesn't accept you for who you are, or your culture, or your colour, or your ethnicity, or what country you're from? I never hid the fact in any employment that I have been working in that I was a traveller. And if it came up in a sub, are you from the travelling community? I'd say yes, up straight. If I didn't get the job, well, shame on you.
Employers are not permitted to discriminate under the Equality Acts. However, if you have a choice of hundreds of people to do a job, you can decide that people could be employed based on whether they have skills or not. My opinion is that there was a stigma attached to employing travellers or other disadvantaged people in the past. This has changed. I think there is more a social acceptance of assisting people, and companies are involved in corporate social responsibility. And what better way of demonstrating corporate social responsibility than to employ somebody who's disadvantaged and assist them.
With legitimate avenues of employment limited to the traveller community, this may explain why many of them are reliant on social welfare. In a recent survey, almost 75% of travellers were unemployed.
Travellers have a dependency on social welfare, that they don't want to take a job and give up social welfare because the job is not permanent, but in their mind social welfare is permanent.
The dole will do me for now, like. Surreal doles, but there's the whole of it.
Some young travelling men just look at there's no jobs available for them. They wouldn't have as much education as their counterparts in a settled community, but so they have no choice but to wait for the dole.
I would think that given the opportunity of being on the dole or working, most modern travellers would want to have a job. And indeed I've seen cases of travellers trying to make their own employment, and I would certainly encourage them to do that.
When you see the tabloids, even if today's tabloids, the Sundays, they have negative things.
Yeah, most of them.
It doesn't bother you at all?
No, we'd be looking into this as what they'd have in a year, we'd have in a week, money-wise, so we didn't give a
You're doing very well.
Right.
Are you still in school?
Me? No.
And what do you do for a living?
Me? Tarmac.
So you do a bit of tarmac. So you would do people's drives and stuff?
Yeah, mostly industrial sets and things like that.
And is it busy?
It's alright. We don't do it in Ireland. We're in America at the moment.
Oh, you're doing it in America?
Yeah.
So do you live in America or do you live here?
We have a house in America.
So you would travel back and forth?
Travel back and forth, yeah.
Do you do
as good a job as we do proper jobs.
Proper tarmac, Adam?
We do proper jobs.
And it wouldn't turn to gravel afterwards?
No.
Proper jobs?
Most of them do, but we do proper jobs.
Why does it turn to gravel sometimes?
Rain.
Could it be something the way that you've mixed it together? Could it be the mix, the original tarmac mix?
No, it's meant to be done about that much worth of tarmac. Most of us put down about that much worth of tarmac, so wash away, but we don't, we put down the whole lot.
For such a diverse culture, there are plenty of positives to be taken from the traveller community in relation to attitudes to work and hopes of success. One outlet set up to highlight this is the Voice of the Traveller magazine, set up through the National Association of Traveller Centres in 1992. The Voice of the Traveller brings together news and opinions from traveller communities all around the country.
It started life about 20 years ago as just a black and white newsletter, and it was started to just put out information about all the work that was being done with travellers around the country, in different training centres. I think initially it was aimed at the travelling community themselves, but I think now it's kind of